Before we start analyzing starts in Civ 6, I'm going to talk to you about the Civ Give real quick. The Civ Give is an annual charity event involving 12 Civilization content creators. That list is coming up on the screen right now. We are playing on December 11th. That's about a week and a bit from now if you are watching this video when it releases. There's a bunch of stuff in the description you can check out if you would like the deets so you don't miss the event. I'm always super proud of our community coming out and donating to the charity events we decide to participate in. This event fundraises for Gamers Outreach, a fantastic charity whose link is also in the description. We have already raised more than $1,000 as a community, and I appreciate you all so much. If you have any money to donate, if you normally do some wintry donating, please think about Gamers Outreach. It's a wonderful charity. As a group of streamers, we're trying to raise $75,000, and I would appreciate it. Every dollar counts, so make sure you hit up that donation link in the description. Otherwise, let's start analyzing some starts. Right now in this video, we're going to roll some starts in Civ 6 and just talk about them. What's good, what's bad, what's beautiful, what's ugly, what we want, what we don't want. I'm out of analogies. I think we should get into the game. We're going to rate each start on a scale from 1 to 5, 1 being outrageously bad, 5 being outrageously good, and everywhere else is somewhere in between. All right, now it's time to analyze the start. Let's take a look at a few things we're looking for in these starts to make them good. First, we are looking for fresh water, which this start has. Settling on fresh water like a river gives you more housing, which is awesome. Settling on the coast is somewhere in the middle. Settling off water, if I were to settle here, for instance, off the river, doesn't give me that housing. If you are trying to figure this out, you can just click the 4 key on your keyboard and you'll see this key up in the top right. Fresh water plus 3 housing, that are all these tiles. No water is just the gray tiles, and then red tiles you can't settle on at all. So these 4 tiles, this 4 key here will give you the information you need about these tiles. So we're looking for these green tiles that give us fresh water. We are looking for some food and production, not only on the tile we settle on, but in the surrounding tiles, right? So if we settle right here in place or on any of these tiles, we're not really getting a lot of food or production in our base. These are very low production tiles, and this one here, even though it has 1 production, once the woods get taken away for settling on it, it's not going to be a very good settle. And then even if I settle here, this is my only kind of good production tile that I can work. From there, I'd have to grow into this tile, but we'd only have 2 tiles with decent production in our first little bit of the empire here. We also have these floodplains here. These floodplains are prone to disaster depending on your disaster intensity. Maybe you want floods, maybe you're going to make a great bath or something and these floodplains are nice. But generally speaking, this start is going to be a 2.5 for me. It's not absolutely unplayable. You could definitely settle here and have a good time. This desert tile kind of stinks. The mercury and the marble being nearby, those are not the best luxury resources. We do, however, have a river. We do have the resources nearby. We have a couple of decent tiles we can work. And at the very least, these floodplains will help us grow the city population quickly. And maybe our second city will have more production in. Overall, 2.5, certainly not good, but certainly not, terrible either. All right, start number 2 is fascinating. I'm not even sure if I'm going to be able to break this down properly, but let's talk about it. Typically, you want to make sure that on standard speed, you are settling your cities in one of the first 2 turns. So either on turn 1 or on turn 2. We have a couple of tiles here that'll be a great base for us. Anytime you can settle on a plains hill, you get a 2-2 base. That means you have 2 food and 2 production in the base of your city. I have a couple of options here. There's a volcano right here, so maybe the best thing for me to do is to settle in place and move my potential campus away from the volcano. But we do have this nice campus here. We do have a 2-2 settle on this plains hill that is on fresh water. So if we click our 4 key again, that's all good to go. I also have the option, if you're okay with putting your campus or holy site or something under the volcano, you could also move your settler here and have this 2-2-1 tile to work. If I settle right here, you will see, thank you, that I have a 2-2 base, so 2 food, 2 production in the base, but I'm also able to work this in my first set of tiles, right? So I can see that my population is working it. This 1 faith is going to help me get my pantheon faster, which is super helpful, right? And if you're playing on monopolies and corporations, having 2 dies here is excellent because that'll give you an early industry. So that's super cool. The downsides to this start are definitely this desert. If you're playing on a lower difficulty, you can get the pyramids on this tile, which would almost certainly make it worth it. There's also like a few too many mountains, right? So you can only work tiles that are 3 out from your city. And in this range of like 3 out from the city, there's too many mountain tiles and you can't work those. So you can't, there's no yields on them. There's no production, there's no food. So in that sense, it is a little bit limiting. On my 1 to 5 scale, without seeing the rest of the map, I'm going to go for a 4 here. This is certainly really, really good. I can probably assume that my next couple of cities won't have the same mountain range issue that this city has. And this city has certainly got enough food, got enough production, got some early faith, and has some great campus and wonder options for me that 4 is good. It's not the best start I've ever seen, but it's up there, above average for sure. This start is interesting because it's quite bad, but has a few things we can still talk about. First, if you want to do a more coastal game, right, you can go and settle on this coast here and get the immediate boost to sailing. I'm not sure Rome is the best on the coast, but that is an option for you. We do have silk here, which is a decent resource. We also have the deer and a couple of woods here. So we do have some chops if we want to chop these woods out to build a wonder later or some settlers. That might be helpful. When we reach lumber mills as well, which is pretty late in the game for the first city, but we can reach lumber mills and add some production here. We also do have a 2-2 tile to settle, right? Remember, we're looking for these plains hills to settle on if we can, to give us a 2-2 settle, and we are on fresh water, so it is meeting some of our requirements. There is the option for the pyramids here, although you would have to purchase the tiles to get out here, and that might get a little bit expensive. These floodplains here are not very inspiring, and overall there's just a lack of production. I think if I was using this start, I would have to settle on one of these 2 tiles. It's worth sending your builder out, yeah, just to see if, or your warrior out, just to see if there's anything that can help you make a better decision. But I think you just got to settle here and get on with it. I'm gonna go with a 2 for this one. I'm gonna go with a 2. Maybe 2.5. I mean, it's certainly playable. Look, you can load into this game, play it, and win this game no problem. So it's not terrible, it's not unplayable, but it's certainly not great. 2 to 2.5, somewhere in there. What a wild start. This is absolutely crazy. We're gonna have a good time talking about this one. So we're on fresh water, that's all good. I can settle this Plains Hill for the 2-2, which is great. I can also take 1 turn to move here and then 1 turn to move to settle here. If I want to settle on this tile, I can get this 2-2-1 tile in my empire. I miss out on 1 turn, but that might be worth it for you depending on how things are going in your game. We have a lot of tea here, so if I move, right now all of this tea is within my borders. If I move over 1, I lose this 3rd tea here, but that can go in another city. And I actually prefer to settle on tea, because settling on tea I just think gives you the science you want without having to use a builder charge to get what is still a pretty bad tile overall. So I think what I would do is I would move here, and then from that, sorry, I'm gonna put another city here. This is just me thinking off the top here. Then you can do something like this. This isn't perfect. This isn't, you know, super scientific or anything. You do something like a campus, commercial hub, holy site, something like that. I don't know, whatever kind of game you're playing. It's up to you, but something like that might work out. These marsh are a little bit annoying, but opens up a potential Atemananki wonder. If anything, you can just chop the marsh out to get food and population. So it's certainly not the worst. We will have a little bit of trouble growing into production. We have a 2-2 base. We have this 2-2 tile here. Once we move out, though, there's not a ton of production. We have these mountains here, and we're going to get rid of this for a campus or something. So there's a little bit of a lack of production, especially if we settle our second city nearby. I'm going to give this a 3. I'm going to give this a 3. I think it looks a little bit better than it is. It's a great starting point. I think there's an overall lack of production, but otherwise gives you some interesting districting options. More than happy to run a full game with this. So I'm going to go with 3. Perfectly average. Average start. Some good, some bad. All right, this is easily the worst start we've had so far. I don't even need to think about it. There's absolutely nowhere to settle that gives you a really good settling location. These quarries give you a little bit of production, but are otherwise terrible, and you probably want to chop them out anyway. And then once you chop them, you have no production at all. These lake tiles are absolutely useless. This tundra is absolutely useless. This is miserable. It gets a little bit better over here, but we're talking like as just the starting location. This is absolutely dreadful. I hate everything about this. This sucks. This is like, sometimes you just got to go on a feeling. We get the fresh water. Everything else about this is brutal and I hate it. 1 point, you know, maybe 1.5. 1.5. I think that's unkind. Unplayable is like you spawn in the tundra or in the middle of a desert that you can at least put farms down here and do something with it. So 1.5. Coming off the last start, I am excited for this one. I don't even really need to think about it. What you should do is move your warrior just to get a little more information here. However, I'm pretty confident I know what I want to do. I'm just going to settle right in place on this Plains Hill. We are going to get that 2-2 settle here. I don't need to be told twice to get this +3 campus, which is absolutely fantastic for our science tempo. So that's going to start revving up. We are on the fresh water. There are loads of food and production tiles around. We can work these 2-2 tiles while chopping these tiles out to build wonders, to build settlers. Chopping is such an important part of the early game when you're getting settlers and you're getting wonders. And so that's super worth it to have those options. Even if we chop these woods, we can chop these out for production and put mines back down on the hills, which can be super helpful. The floodplains are far enough away that I can get 2 farms on these tiles to get my food production up. So overall, it's not perfect. I think it'd be perfect if these were like diamonds or something. If I'm really being persnickety, getting like ivory and diamonds or something would be a little bit better than the dyes over here. But otherwise, this is about as close as we're going to get to perfect without seeing any more of the map. So 4.5. Love this. I would love to play this. 4.5. You have a couple of options here. You can settle on the copper, but you can also chop the copper out later. Settling on the copper will give us this permanent gold bonus in our capital. I think that's fine though, because if we settle here, we can still work this. This will be the first tile we work anyway. So that's totally fine. These tiles aren't great. A little bit of a lack of food and production, but there are enough hills nearby that you can build. I guess there are enough hills nearby that you can build some mines for production. So you can get some farm triangles, some mines. So it's not like the other saves where we had no production opportunity whatsoever. So it's certainly not great in that aspect. We're still missing a little bit of production here, but we have the option for quite a bit of food, and there are enough hills for that. What we can do is settle this and make like a really interesting canal between the ocean and this little lake here, which I find fascinating. That's fine. Goody, that's all good. And it does give you, we talk about districting a little bit. It does give you some interesting districting options. We got this harbor next to the turtles. And because this is a reef, you can put this here. This will be a +3 campus. And a +3 is kind of where we hit, like where we want to get to for our science district there. So I think that's okay. I think it's a little bit unfortunate that you have these lake tiles that are pretty useless with the ocean tiles. If it was just the ocean tiles, I would say, hey, play a little bit of a more naval-based roam game and you might have a little bit of fun. So there's some tiles that need a little bit of work here. You could build the mausoleum, I believe, here. Let's double check and see if it'll let me build the mausoleum. Once you chop out the copper, let's sauce down a mausoleum. Yeah, you can do that. And then all of a sudden, these coastal tiles are wonderful. So I think if you run kind of this plan from early on, harbor, campus, mausoleum here, I think you're having a good time. Having furs on this continent has nothing to do with this settle, but it is a good sign. I'm going to say 3. You can have a lot of fun with this. There are some drawbacks, like these 4 kind of useless tiles here. Otherwise, if you're going to get like a naval roam start, a coastal roam start, this is not the worst one I've ever seen, so 3. Boy, oh boy, another fascinating start that I'm not really sure how I feel about after a first glance. We have no option for a 2-2 base, and I certainly don't want to settle on the floodplain. So our options then are to settle in place here and work this 2-2 tile, or to move over one and work this 2-2 tile. I think I'm happy settling in place. What we could do is go for an early animal husbandry to unlock the camp, and the camp will allow us to build on this to get a little bit more gold, which should be fine. We're going to grow really quickly here. This early citrus will give us lots of food. These floodplains will give us lots of food. And we do have some tiles we can grow up to for production. So there's not no production on this map either. We can put it's not a good food tile, but we can put a mine on this tile for production as well. So we're not completely starved for production. We certainly are going to have a surplus of food. I'm not stoked about the floodplains, but we are on fresh water. You can see how much I'm going back and forth with this. I don't hate this. I don't think it's very good. But you settle in place. I guess you could work this 3 food tile to grow first and then work the 2-2 tile. I also acknowledge that if you move here, you have this tile and then you can grow both ways for another 2-2 tile. So there is some merit to moving on over. But overall, I don't terribly hate this. This might be one where I'll show off, like if you do want to settle near some floodplains and that suits your fancy, you might want to think about some kind of like dam, aqueduct. Oh yeah, I guess bath if you're Rome, but dam, aqueduct, industrial zone, commercial hub? Once you put the dam down, you can settle these districts on the floodplain just fine. I don't hate this at all. It takes a little bit of upkeep with builders to really get online, but you have enough in terms of food, production, district opportunities. You got some fresh water. The floodplains are a little bit disappointing. 2.75. I don't think it's as good as some of the 3s we've given, but maybe some of the 3s we've given have been a little low. Maybe this is a 3 and the last one was like a 3.5. I don't know. You tell me what number it is. I have somewhere between 2.75 and 3.25. This is a complicated scale of 5, okay? This is a wonderful example from the last start about what bad floodplains are. Last time we saw the floodplains and thought, hey, we can make something work with this. We got the aqueduct, the dam, the industrial zone. I don't think any of that applies here. This start is really, really awful. If we press key number 4 again, we can't settle on this copper and have fresh water, so that's really not an option. So we do have to settle on the floodplains to eat. Yeah, this is terrible. This is brutal. There's not a ton of production. The food you get is just going to come via floods, so that's not helpful. There's nothing here. This sucks. 1.5. If 1 is truly unplayably like in the tundra, 1.5. I hate everything about this. Not enough production, not enough districting options. No great tiles to work in any ring of your city, right? Out of the 3 rings, none of them have good tiles to work. Just not a fan. 1.5. Restart, how dare you? Show me that. I don't think this is as bad as the last one, but I'm not super stoked about it either. There's just not a lot going on here. All of these tiles, for them to be good, they require a build charge, which means you're going to have to build a builder and use a charge, right? What is good about this is you can pretty easily come and settle this copper. If you don't want the coastal settle, if you want the coastal settle, you can take the coastal settle, so that's fine. Oh yeah, and this tundra really sucks. 1.5. This has a little more going on than the last one in the sense that like you could stay here if you wanted to and get a harbor with decent adjacency. You can come up here and get a 2-2-2 settle, which is a little bit nice early on to buy another settler to get out of this terrible start. This tundra really sucks. The ocean really sucks. These floodplains are not that helpful. And I'm discounting the floodplains a little bit, and it really depends on your disaster intensity, but the more these flood, you might get better tiles, but you still gotta work them. Yeah, I don't know. 1.5 again? Oh, interesting. I certainly like this one more than some of the other floodplain starts. We still have the floodplains here. Use them if you want to. We got the Plains Hills tiles here. These deserts are far enough away that if I want to buy out to it to build a pyramid, that's great, but I don't need to like rely on them to be a big part of my city infrastructure. These will provide me with a lot of chops here. There's enough hills nearby that I could mine them for production if I need them. Again, that does use a build charge, but in the other scenario, last start, we had to use build charges just to get like food. In this case, it seems like we're going to have enough. Going on. Maybe not. Maybe you got to use a build charge to get food here too. In any case, even if you got to use all your build charges, you still have the option to use your build charges for food and for production, which is not the case before. You don't have any super obvious districting stuff going on other than the dam, aqueduct, industrial zone play, but you could do that over multiple cities if you wanted to. This is all just very rough stuff that I'm doing, but you could do something like this with industrial zones, dams, aqueducts, commercial hubs, those types of things to get something like this going on. I don't hate this. It's not great. It's not terrible. It does require quite a few build charges to get up and running, but at least gives you something to work on. 2-2 start, but no immediate 2-2 tiles at all. Any 2-2 tile comes from a builder charge, which is really annoying. Let's go 2.5. 2.5. I would play this. I would have fun playing this, but it's not it's a below average start, I think. I don't know what is going on, but holy smokerinos does this game love giving Rome floodplains. It made sense if this was a dam, but this being an aqueduct, like I don't need floodplain. I can connect it to any river. We are definitely going to move across here. I really don't want to settle on the floodplains. But if I'm sticking, this might be one of the rare games where you settle here on turn 4. That feels really bad. That feels really bad indeed, but we're definitely settling right here. And we're going to work the 2-2 tile. We have a couple of 2-2 tiles we can immediately work, which is great. We can grow out to this 2-2. We can grow out to this 4-2. It might have been worth, in another world, coming out and coming here to settle this 4-2 tile. We just don't see enough to make that decision. So based on what we can see, I think this was the right call. We're going to have lots of food here. We're going to have lots of production. That's not a problem, other than settling on the floodplains, which is pretty detrimental. I think it's made up for by the rest of this going on. If you're playing on a normal disaster intensity, hopefully this isn't too big of a problem. You will be able to build a dam later, and at least you have the aqueduct with Rome, the Bath industrial zone play for all that. So that should be fine. You can play around with a harbor here if you want as well, instead of a commercial hub on a flooding river, so that should be good. There's no obviously good districts though, which is a little bit concerning, but there is always the opportunity to settle a city over here possibly, and then put a government plaza down, and then you can start just chucking stuff next to it and getting that sweet adjacency. I don't know. Anything's possible, baby. Anything's possible. So let's give this a 3 as well. I think this is average. I think this is not below average. I don't think this is above average. I just think this is a perfectly average playable start. 3. 3 from me. What we're going to do now is we're going to go into the game settings and see if we can tweak them a little bit to give ourselves slightly better map rolls. A, so that I can show you what a really good start looks like, and B, so I can show you how I kind of tune the map to make sure that I have a decent start with somebody like Rome. The first thing we're going to change is the world age, and we're going to change that to new. This is very common in multiplayer matches. A map with more hills, mountains, and volcanoes. Now, what we don't really need are the volcanoes. Having a few more mountains is nice for science adjacency stuff with campuses, and having more hills will make all of those starts we had earlier where there was just like flat land forever. If a few more of those are hills and we can put mines down, all of a sudden you have a way to gain production, and that's good. So the first thing we're going to do is world age new. I'm not going to put the start position on legendary because a lot of people will find that to be cheating. I want to be clear. I don't think you can cheat at a single player game. Play this how you want. If you want a legendary start, pick the city states, pick all the heroes and legends, do it. You paid a lot of money for this game. Play the game you want to play. Don't let me, don't let any other streamer, don't let anyone in the comments tell you you're a cheater for kind of stacking the map or re-rolling the map to get a good start. You are not. You are having fun with a game you paid good money for. Rant over, but I think that's it. Maybe just this one small change to the new world age might be the only change I want to make to someone like Rome. I also don't normally play my games on continents. I normally play them on Pangaea. If you play on Pangaea, you're more likely to spawn away from the ocean. So let's pretend we're not playing on continents. Let's pretend we are playing on a Pangaea map like I normally play. But I think going to a Pangaea map is a little bit more what I like in Civ. And as someone like Trajan, I don't want to be on the water too often, so having more continents isn't very helpful for me. And a new world age should give me enough to give me more reliably good map rolls. So we'll see. So already we are seeing the benefits of the new world age. So we are not on the coast, which is helpful. But right now, if I just settle right in place on this geothermal fissure, you typically want to settle on these if you can, because they're not very good tiles. So let's just settle in place. You can't work them otherwise. So we start with a 2-2-1. We get that 1 science, which is nice. There's not immediately a 2-2 tile to work, but I can buy this 3-2 tile pretty early on, and we'll grow to it pretty quickly. We have gypsum nearby, but what you can see here is there are at the very least a few hills, right? There's hills here, there's hills over here, there's hills here, there's hills down here. So what this is doing is it's taking all that flat line and just spotting a few hills through it to give us a little more production opportunities, which already makes a big difference to our start quality, because I think this is much better than some of the flatland ones we were getting earlier. All right, we are still indeed getting these spotty floodplains, but there's still some hope for this start. In this scenario, I'm going to settle on the stone. I normally wouldn't do that, but this wine tile is not too bad. There's a 2-2 tile nearby. But even as we can see here, the floodplains are still annoying, but there's just a few more hills spotted throughout, right? Where we can build those mines. So at least nearby, there are more tiles than we were getting before. And I think this is a perfectly fair thing to do here. We're going to settle on the stone. It's not great. This is worse than the last one, I think. But just having that new world age just spots a few more hills in here, gives you a few more 2-2 tiles overall. Yeah, a 2-2 base, a pretty early 2-2 tile to work. Wine industry and cocoa nearby. So this is all fine. This is all fine. What is this, a 3? This is a 3. We like this. We'd play this. This is awesome. Cotton nearby too. Some luxuries. So that's good. I think, we've only rolled twice, but I think the new world age with the hills is making a pretty big difference. So I would recommend it for your starts with Rome or any other Civ that doesn't have a specifically important start bias like Rome. And that will be it for this video. I always love making these. If you have any questions about good starts, bad starts, beautiful starts, ugly starts, whatever, let me know in the comments below. I will try and get to as many comments as possible this weekend. Stay tuned for part 2, where I'll be covering civs like Canada that have a tundra bias that you need to consider, civs like Mansa Musa who have a desert bias, civs like Dido that have a coastal bias. And we'll talk about all of those kind of off bias civs that we didn't talk about in this video in the next one. Just a reminder, the civ give is next weekend. If you're watching this in the future, it's already happened, but that link is in the description below. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next one.